All right, we are live. Welcome to another Substack Live, and good morning, everyone. I was away last week, but following closely the fatal shooting of Renee Good in Minnesota, of course. And I've worked on cases of excessive force, including the Rodney King case, and I have found that the prosecutor's task is very much to take a sort of big melee that can be confusing when you just watch a tape again and again and really break it down to the flashpoints that will determine guilt or innocence before a jury. And when I came back, I looked for who had written about that, and one person alone has. Asha Rangappa of the great Substack herself, Freedom Academy, but also, as many of you know, she's a senior lecturer at the Yale University Jackson School and a former associate dean at Yale Law School. But she was critically a special agent in the FBI, where she specialized in counterintelligence investigations and, of course, received training in use of force, including deadly force with a gun, that really informs her analysis, which is splendid. And I really recommend. She has broken things down to the 9 real critical flashpoints. This is exactly the prosecutorial task that awaits either Minnesota or, seems less likely, the United States. And I think invaluable for us now in trying to come to grips with an episode that at least the administration is saying, no problem, nothing happened here. He was confronted by deadly force, was the shooter Ross. So, Asha Rangappa, so happy to be here with you today to talk about this great piece, which you called The 7 Crucial Moments in the Minneapolis ICE Shooting.
Thank you. No, I appreciate you having me on, and I think it's noteworthy that we have so much video footage
It's
of this,
unbelievable.
right?
I'm
From different
thinking,
angles, because I think, like,
yeah,
including, by the way, because he had his body cam off. I guess he's supposed to have it on, right? But
right.
he's filming this the whole time, which, by the way, is also a point that we can talk about. Um, So it really does, I think, give some really crucial insight into whether this legal standard was met. Like, as you said,
Yeah, well, let's talk. Well,
yeah,
first, let me just make this preliminary point. In Rodney King, there was that one tape, and you had to massage it for all it was worth. Here we have so many, and it does look as if Minnesota may be hamstrung by outrageously, the federal government might simply might not just not be helping, but might actually be impeding. But it's really true. There's a substitute for forensics when you take and kind of triangulate or more all these different videos. Let me start here, though, Asha, and ask you to lay out what is the basic. It varies a little: Minnesota homicide law and U.S. Excessive force law. But what's the standard that a prosecutor would have to show to convict, the sort of mens rea, as it were, the shooter, Ross, for this being not a justified shooting?
well, you can speak to what the prosecutor need to prove. I can
Yeah,
tell you what would make it a valid shoot, a good shoot, as we would say,
good.
right?
Yeah,
So when we were trained at the FBI Academy, let me just tell you that the firearms training is no joke.
yeah.
We had a lawyer always on site when we would do, deadly force scenarios. We would do them in electronic simulations. We would do them in live simulations. And you always had to articulate what your legal basis was for using your weapon for every shot that leaves your weapon. And to be clear, in the simulations, and they were not real fire, obviously.
No, but no,
So
I've seen them. It's starchy. Yeah,
Yeah, and, here's the thing, Harry, you know that I lean, to the left, but I will say, like, I have a lot of sympathy for officers who are placed in those situations, because until you go through one of those simulations, you don't realize how quickly, like, you have to quickly make an assessment of a threat, often before your brain can process all the information. So, one of the key things that they would tell you all the time is action beats reaction, meaning you often don't have enough time for your brain to actually take in every single detail, understand what it means before you decide to use. So if there's somebody's reaching for something, you don't necessarily have time to determine whether it's a wallet or a gun. Because if you wait to do that, you might get shot. Okay. So they go through simulations where you learn this is the case, right? You get killed. And so I always look at it to, with that frame of mind.
And you
And
know who else does? I'm sorry to interrupt. Is juries. So you say it's, but that's exactly that what you just articulated, Asha, is the standard kind of defense. The thin blue line developing quickly. It's in the field. You can't appreciate how dangerous it is for officers, et cetera. And juries typically have sympathy for that position, which is why these cases are notoriously difficult.
And it's really hard. I mean, it is really hard, and I would encourage you, if your local police department, has a citizens academy, to go and do it, because I think sometimes when you're on the other side, it can be really helpful. So, the legal standard is that when you're looking at the reasonable belief of the officer in that moment. Do they have a reasonable belief that they are in imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury? Okay, to them, or to themselves, or to others. Um, in the case of someone who's fleeing, the bar is very high. If someone is fleeing, you can only use deadly force, and I think even the Department of Justice policy has been circumscribed in this regard. But I do think this is still the DHS policy.
Yeah.
If you know that they are a danger to others. Like they're armed and dangerous. They just did a school shooting and they're like fleeing with an AK-47 or something like that, or whatever, AR-15. Um, then, you may have justification, but otherwise, like, even fleeing suspects um, you are typically not justified in doing that.
And in this case, to cut to the
And
chase,
she's not a
uh,
suspect.
right. So Ross will have to. It will turn on whether a jury concludes beyond a reasonable doubt that he indeed is in reasonable fear of imminent death or serious bodily injury. Right.
Correct. That
And you've really carefully analyzed, and we'll do a link to it. But there's all you've put up videos, and you've done your Asha Rangappa trademark kind of diagrams and stuff. It's awesome. But to really break it down to 7 critical moments, let's sort
Yes.
of talk
So
about a few of them. What do you see as the very first kind of linchpin? And again, the focus is he in reasonable fear of serious bodily injury or death?
correct, correct. So let's just set the scene for a second. What we see is he drives up, he gets out of the vehicle, right? He moves right up to the vehicle with his camera and he begins circling it and filming.
Moves right up to Good's vehicle.
Moves right. So we know that
Yeah.
he is not worried at that point that he's in any danger, right? Because he's coming, you're not supposed to like go, if you believe that somebody's about to pull out a gun and shoot you or something like that, you're not going to do that. So he's coming up, he's slowly circling. His attention, by the way, is focused on the camera. It's not on
Yeah.
her. It's not on her partner, which again, if you think that there's any possibility that someone might make some crazy moves on you, you got your hands on them. You always have to be watching the person, where their hands are, like all of those things. He's not. He's filming, casually walking around. Then we
And I
see
want
these.
to, I don't mean to interrupt. People are here to hear you, but as a prosecutor, FBI tag team here, one of the big facts that I'm all over in a closing argument, he like saunters around the car. I mean, he is, almost a little bit of a swagger, but not a guy who's got, an adrenal surge that his life
He's
is on
not.
the line. He's
No.
almost sort of informal and curious, because he's not the guy who made the, by the way, illegal stop of Good. He's just what's going
He
on here,
clearly
and
thinks
that
he's in he
casual stroll, I think, is a big piece of
and he
evidence
believes
already.
he's in command of the situation, you know what I mean? Like, he's not defensive in any way, like,
Right.
he is there. Then we see these other 2 officers come. Again, No evidence that they believe that they are in any kind of believe that they're in any threat because they move right up to the vehicle. One actually goes to the door and tries to open it. Okay. So again, these are not people who are afraid of either the driver of this vehicle or the person who is outside. So that's the scene. The first
And
critical
that's one flashpoint, right? The sort of sauntering around. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, 2, yeah, the sauntering around and then the other 2 coming right up. So we have
Right.
these data points that they don't perceive this to be threatening to them, all right, in a way that they, in the way that they're behaving. The first critical moment comes, I think it's at the 29-second mark of the officer's own, filming. He's on the passenger side of the vehicle. He switches the phone. He's filming with his right hand. You see his left hand come. He switches it, okay? At that moment, I don't know that we can see good specifically, but I think she's now talking to or she's, engaged with the 2 officers who have come to her door. There's no reason that he needs
And
to.
non-combative talk, even a little jocular, right?
Right. And
I'm
so
not mad at you guys. Yeah.
my point is there's nothing to precipitate this, but what he's doing is he is freeing up his dominant hand, the hand that can go to his weapon, right? With no provocation, just so you know. It's now free for reasons that we don't know, right? He's still not, he's still on the passenger side. He then
And I just
moves.
wanna stop. This is brilliant point number 1, y'all, in the Rangappa, tour de force. It really is. If you think about it, this is exactly what things would look like in front of a jury. There'd be a half an hour on this sort of stuff. Really, he's got a phone in his right hand, and he switches it as he's walking. It's what must that be about? What must he be thinking of, doing that he does that?
He switches it, for no apparent reason. And then the very next thing that he does, which is the next crucial moment, is he switches it just as he circles the front of the vehicle, which at that moment is still running. The engine is running. Okay. So again, what we know right now is he does not believe that he is in danger of being run over, even though there's a driver in a car with the engine turned on, because he goes and stands right. He voluntarily moves to the front of it. Okay. Um,
It's sort of right, it's kind of important, right at the side of it. Yeah, well, go ahead.
yeah, this part I want to talk about that because I didn't
Yeah,
put that in my piece,
yeah.
but I thought about something since then. He goes and as he circles, by the way, she begins reversing. So even as the vehicle begins to move, he's not like, "Oh shit, like I need to like maybe I shouldn't be standing in front of the vehicle," like 'cause she's like, it's now moving. He actually continues to move, okay? And he moves to the far to her the driver's side
Side.
kind of corner almost, right? Here is the okay, so that's crucial moment number 2. Crucial moment number 3, you can see that as he moves there, he has already started reaching for the weapon. Before she I mean, maybe there's another freeze frame that needs to go, but what I see is by the time before she even shifts into gear, his hand is back towards his weapon. And here's why this is important because it gets to the action beats reaction. Okay? Action beats reaction means that if he was there and is like, I'm just, getting her ID, getting her face ID, and I had no idea that she might do this. I was reacting by the time she would have moved into drive, he would not have had the time to pull the weapon out. He might, I would guess that maybe the weapon would have been out as she drove away. Maybe he would have maybe he still would have gotten those shots into the side, to the rear of the car. He would not have had time to pull that weapon and put it in front of her windshield if it was purely reactive. Those
And can
three
I speak
things.
to that for a
Yeah.
second? This to me, Asha, was the most brilliant aspect of a really meticulous piece, because I'm here to say that very instant he's going to say, "Oh, now the car is coming at him as a deadly weapon," and there's a lot of argument because it looks, in fact, like it never is in his path, but it sure looks when you slow it down almost simultaneous with putting it in gear and his shooting. But your analysis, and there will be expert testimony of this at trial, I think is very persuasive, that given action reaction, how things happen, it's impossible that that was in
It
fact
wouldn't have
in
been simultaneous.
reaction to it. Just doesn't work like that. What would otherwise be a tableau subject to this interpretation, oh, look at that very moment, I think you persuasively rebut, and that to me would be the sort of almost, incandescent moment in closing argument at
It
trial. Yeah,
it's like simultaneous, and there's just no
yeah,
way if he was reacting that he would be pulling the weapon
yeah,
simultaneously with her putting it into drive, right?
yeah.
Um, so you have these 3 things: the switching of the phone, moving in front of the car even as it's reversing, having the hand so close. These are all anticipatory actions to me. Those are not reactive actions, okay? So then let's look at she begins to drive. Here's the other thing that I noticed. That first shot, so she's at an angle to him, okay? And yet that first shot goes through the windshield. That's not, when you pull your weapon and you're acting defensively, you're trained to shoot straight out in front of you. If that had happened, that's not where that shot would have gone. If you look, he's kind of leaning in. I don't know, you can't see his wrist. I don't know if he's, like, turned the weapon, but he makes an effort to get that shot in through the windshield. That is not the normal angle that it would come, and, he's leaning in, and you see that first thing, his feet, by the way, are outside of the path of the tire. It does not
So right
run.
there, so that's huge. Both these points, here's where the plethora of video is really going to matter. When they investigate, there will be more videos to come, and you'll be able to find. First, there is the video that already shows it's close, but you know what it's like to be in front of a car. The difference between knowing it's coming at me and it's coming just to the side of me is everything. But then also the very angle you're talking about, we can't see it on his, but you're going to be able to triangulate it and really, I think, put it together. So that leaning in point, again, brilliant. Why is it significant in terms of the
Well,
the
it's
overall
leaning
use
in
of
because,
force? Yeah,
again, that is a choice, right? Like, if you come, at that, again, a reactive, to me, an instinctive reaction is
yeah.
to move back. I mean, even when I, like, think about a car move, anything moving at you, even if you're pulling your weapon, you're pulling it as you're kind of stepping back. He's planted, man. He is planted. He is in full aggressive, kind of, and like I said, getting in that shot. And to the extent that this car maybe grazes him, I would argue that he's putting himself in the path, not that he would have normally been in it.
Is there any
But
evidence that it grazes him? I don't think there is
I
evidence
don't
that it
know, but,
grazes him.
Joyce Mance and Ellie Honig did a conversation yesterday where he insisted that the car hit him, and I
He,
don't see this.
he,
It might
Ellie, yeah. Well,
so he
that's
might have
why it's
grazed
gonna
him,
matter.
but
Okay, well, let's just say there's video that I've seen that rebuts that, but whatever it is, that matters a lot. And again, we'll have all the video out there. All that needs to be happening now is a very, very thorough investigation. That's what you're
yeah.
saying. But there's a big difference.
Okay, so
And
so
yeah,
the first shot, like, so I
yeah,
think that it would have required more effort to get that first shot through the windshield because of the angle of the car where he's standing. That's not a normal straight on, shot, to be honest.
yeah.
Um, it then moves, and here's the other thing. At that moment, there is a repositioning for him to then get shot 2 and 3, which, by the way, at this point, I don't know that there's any doubt that the threat has passed. We know, like, if you actually, he's quite far away from the vehicle, it's moving, um, away from him. There's no evidence that she's a danger to anyone else,
I
I mean,
mean, it's to his side, right?
it's to
It's
his side.
really, yeah,
So to me, shots 2 and 3 are not even sequential, like, and you and I, we were on a discussion where we were talking
yeah,
about this. I don't think this is like bam, bam, bam. I think this is shot kind of then re-aiming to the window to get shot 2 and 3. Like, in other words, there is a moment of recalibration that I see in there. It is precisely because he would have had to contort in some way to get that
yeah.
first shot, it looks to me, and then to like, that's not if he had stayed in that same position, shot 2 and 3 would have just I don't know where they would have gone, maybe to the door or, something
Yeah.
like that. Like, it was intentional, I think,
Can
those
I follow
2
up
sets.
on that based on your experience, Asha? Because I totally see. I mean, if you just freeze frame shots 2 and 3, it just looks like an execution.
Yeah.
But you've, as you said, been in the field and had training. How likely is it that once someone has taken a posture and decided to use a gun, that they're just in this sort of, automatic reflexive thing and they just keep shooting as someone passes? Or, as a both subjective matter, what's it like for an agent, and as a actual regulation matter for the bureau? Do you have to uh, just recalculate in these sorts of very short time?
I think it's a like I think it could be context specific. If someone is coming at you and trying to grab your gun, for example, then yes, you might fire more than one shot because you don't know which one has neutralized
Yeah,
this threat, right? Like, this person's on top of you, they're grabbing you, bam, bam, bam. But this is like a different context. This is where the claim is that the threat is that this car is coming at him. So even if there is this thing, the initial one, I just don't see any reason like, the
it's the
distance
car,
between
not
his
her,
feet.
that he is trying to
It's
neutralize.
the car and not her, thank you. That's actually a great way of framing it. So once
Yeah.
the car is, like, moving away, you know, I don't see that you would not at that moment, like, step back and, and you are trained, by the way, you cannot flee at, you cannot fire at moving vehicles because it's very dangerous to do so, right? These are to the point that they're trying to claim vehicles are weapons, and you have, like, basically like an unguided weapon if the driver of a vehicle is disabled, right? Which then puts other people in danger. So there should be, I think, especially a special restraint in that kind of situation. And then here's the final point, Larry, Harry, not Larry. He never drops sorry, he never drops the camera, the phone. I'm sorry, but if it's really, like, on tunnel vision,
Yeah.
especially because you're trained, you are trained to have both hands on your weapon. Now, at the FBI Academy, we were trained to shoot with one hand if the other hand is injured. So we
Right.
we learn to shoot with just our right hand, with just our left hand. If you are shooting with one hand, I still have muscle memory even though I trained in this, like, 20 you shoot with the free hand, the injured hand, arm against you because you don't wanna shoot your own hand, right? So you're trained to kind of pull it up against you if you're shooting one-handed. Here is this guy, I don't even know what he's doing. Um
The recoil of a
why are
gun,
both
people don't
hands not on
appreciate.
the
Yeah.
weapon? Why doesn't he, he's in such, so again, the feet planting, the leaning in, the holding the camera, this to me is not like, this is someone who is very much kind of um in control, like, not startled, let's put it that way.
Yeah, and
in my
I'll
opinion.
compare with other cases I've done where that the whole argument is you're completely, what you're different when you fear for your life. We only have another minute, but so the conclusion of your great piece, everyone check it out, the Freedom Academy and everything else, the Freedom Academy, is this is a bad shoot, and that that's a term of art. It's give us the bottom line as you see it, and what is a
So the bottom
bad
line,
shoot?
so a bad shoot is that he doesn't meet the standard, that he reasonably believed that he was in danger of death or serious bodily injury. And, my big takeaway is even though we're seeing this whole encounter, to me, the only relevant window is from the moment that she begins when she goes into drive, because before that he's voluntarily putting himself in that situation. We know that he doesn't believe he's in danger, otherwise he wouldn't stand in front of the car. So the only window is from the moment that the vehicle begins to move forward until it passes him, and then the threat has passed. So it's just that. I don't even know if it would be like a second or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And again, I think that the pieces that we have talked about in terms of the angle of the how he positioned himself to take the first shot, etc., not dropping the gun, all of not dropping the phone, all to me suggest that this is not a defensive action.
Asha Rangappa, as I say, this is, I think, exactly the kind of analysis prosecutors need to be doing and hopefully will be doing, if nothing else, just to investigate it thoroughly. Thanks so much for being with us. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Thanks. And for anybody who wants to join, I'm doing a talk with an author in 5 minutes of the book "Why We Act: Turning bystanders into moral rebels." And this is a part of my research into complicity. So anybody who wants to check it
And
out
and,
really
and
wants.
where can everyone go to do that, to join?
So go to the Freedom Academy. The post is there. My speaker series are for paid subscribers, but the Zoom link is there if you want to join. I'm going to be having more speakers on the topic of complicity and moral rebels who have chosen to speak out in these times. And I'd love for people to join.
And maybe stay tuned for a book about all this as well.
Yes.
You're Asha Rangabi, you're clicking on all cylinders. Thank you so much for a really valuable insight.
Thanks for having me, Harry.
Bye.
Bye.